So we're here with Simon Finnigan, Widnes Vikings head coach, for the first of the 2021 series of Getting to Know. We're going to be getting to know our head coach a little bit better today. Obviously the fans will know you from being a former player and now obviously stepping up to the head coach role. So we're going to dive in and just ask you about growing up and where your journey began. Just tell us a little bit about the place where you grew up.
Yeah, well, it was a smaller town in Australia, just west of Sydney, called Erskine Park. It's the easiest way I explain it to people. It's just outside of Penrith, so it was quite a small town, and we didn't get out of that town too much. So, all my early memories are it was really hot all the time, and then in the winter it was really cold. But that's where I'm from, so I had a really good upbringing there, and it was all sport really, so it was good.
And what was your first experience with rugby league? Where was the first place you went to play and the first time you got some interest in the sport?
Well, my brother, he was playing before me. My brother's probably about 10 years older than me, so he started playing rugby, and I used to go. I remember going to watch him play and wanted to join in, and some of my mates were playing, and there was a local team which was our amateur team called St Clair Comets, and I remember going up in the. I was meant to join in the under nines. My mum took me, but I was too scared. I didn't want to join. I was, like I say, I was scared. I didn't want to take part, probably because they were all big, and I wasn't that interested then once I seen how it actually worked. So I missed out when I was under nines, and then I went back in under tens and joined a team. So I guess the rest is history from there, rugby, because it's been part of my life ever since. But yeah, definitely my initial thoughts on it was, this isn't for me. It's a little bit too rough, and I'm a little bit scared at the moment. So I remember that very clearly.
And growing up in a rugby league mad place like Australia, you must have had a hero or an idol in the sport that you looked up to. Who was the first one you remember thinking that was your hero?
Well, it was I've always been a Penrith Panthers supporter, but my rugby league hero was a fella called Alfie Langer. He played, I think he's played at Warrington. I don't think, he has come over and played at Warrington, and he played for the Brisbane Broncos. But he was someone that I always enjoyed watching because he was small. He didn't fit the usual type of a rugby league player, which I sort of fit that category. I was nowhere near the skill level that he had, and he was a freakishly good player. But in terms of stature and physique, that's, I was a skinny, small kid. I only grew up, I think I had a growth spurt at about 17 where I shot up and got tall, but I've always been skinny and small, so I don't think I was ever really built to play rugby league. So yeah, he was certainly one of my idols because, like I say, I could, in a certain way, I could look at him and think, maybe I can do it.
I was just going to ask, growing up in Australia and trying to make it over there, how difficult was it in those teams that you represented before you made the move to England?
Yeah, really difficult. The area that I'm from, and it still is the same, the Penrith district, is for junior rugby. It's incredible, just for the pure volume of players that play it. So the talent pool is massive. It's probably, if not the biggest in the world in terms of junior rugby league. So it was difficult. I would imagine it's even more difficult now. That the game's changed quite a bit. But yeah, it was tough. But yeah, again, it's probably a bit of stubbornness that I've been told a few times that you won't do something. So I never seen any reason why I can't. So I probably just thought, you just got to hang in there and it might work out.
So then at the age of 20, you made the decision to move back to England and to come here to Widnes in search of a chance of a Super League contract. Can you talk us through the decision-making process there, how you came to that decision to come back here?
Yeah, well, I got signed for my first professional contract with a coach, and he coached over at St Helens called Roy Simmons. He was the head coach at Penrith when I was 18, 19. So that was my first full-time contract. And after a year, I was going all right and getting into reserve grade, and then he got sacked, and obviously a change of coach, John Lang, come in, and the whole philosophy of the club changed. And you just have a feeling that it's not going to work out. So I wanted to carry on playing, and I knew that Steve Carter was over here. He was playing for Widnes at the time, and through Roy Simmons again, he got in contact with Steve Carter, who then went on to speak to Neil Kelly and said there's a kid that wants to come over for a chance. And basically Neil, the feedback that come back through, he says, we'll give him a chance. We'll we'll pay him some expenses to live week for week, but come January we'll see if he's good enough, and if he is, he might get a contract. Otherwise, he's on trial. So I just packed my bags up, moved, and went on a chance. Really, there was nothing guaranteed, so I had 2 months to come and earn a contract. So it was, but I didn't see it at the time as anything. I'd never moved out of home. I'd never always lived with my mum and dad. I'd been to America, but not really. I've got everything on a plate for me. She cooked my meals, everything, washed my clothes. There was nothing that my mum wouldn't have done for me. So in that regard, it was a big move. But at 20, you just don't see the world like that. You just think, I'll go over there, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I got over and had 2 months to prove myself, and fortunately for me, it worked out. I remember my debut, certainly the Boxing Day game. It's not a debut, but my first game was a trial, and I don't think I've ever played worse in my 15 years of playing the game. I can remember dropping the ball in dummy half about 2 metres off our line, and all the Warrington fans just straight away on top of me, and I thought, no chance, I'm never going to get this contract, because it wasn't a good day. But obviously Neil seen something in training, and then I had a better game the next friendly against St Helens, and from there I got a 1 year deal, and I think I played the first 20 games straight, and then I got injured, but the first year really worked out well, and then I ended up signing an extension. So
at the age of 20 you come to Widnes. Were there any similarities to where you came from back home in Australia? Obviously not the weather.
No, nothing. It was completely different, culture shock, all them things. The weather was cold then, but the winters now are worse. So I don't know what would have happened if I come over a winter now, because they're cold, and I've been here 20 years. But yeah, it was different. But I was lucky because the club were great for me. Frank Milo, who's not with us anymore, but I remember him coming and taking me to the Hillcrest, and I think he smoked about 10 fags on the way there, but he was great. He was really straight to the point and looked after you. And everyone at the club, the people in the shop, Janet, they all did everything they possibly could to at least make you feel welcome. And I was fortunate again to move in with some families. I lived with Robert Rell for probably the first 8 or 9 months, and then I ended up moving in with Shane Millard. And so even though I was on my own, I still lived in a family environment, and you don't probably think it at the time, but that helped me massively, because I'd never been out of home. So it was a huge culture shock, but I got looked after very well, so that made the adjustment a lot easier for me.
So you made your derby in 2003 against Hull. Do you remember much of that day and the feelings of finally pulling on that Widnes jersey, having earned yourself a contract?
Yeah, I do. And I don't remember loads of different parts about my career, which you just forget certain things, but that I do, because we played Hull the day before in an academy game. So I played the academy, which I think was reserves back then. I can't remember exactly if it was reserves or 19s and older players could play, but we played Hull at the Wids and had a pretty decent game. And then I remember me and Paul Devlin going to McDonald's, having our feed, and I was just about to have a beer. Well, I say it now, I've had a couple of beers, and then Neil said, make sure you don't go out tonight. I was like, oh, okay. He said, you'll be on the bench tomorrow, we're playing away at Hull. So, yeah, in a way, yeah, it's probably a good thing, because I didn't have the whole week of thinking it's my debut, I've got to do this and that. I basically had the night where you get told you're playing, and by the time you break it down and your thought process is, oh, wow, what's going to happen here? You're asleep, and you wake up and you're there. But I was nervous. The first part of my career, the first few years, I was nervous before all games. So, but yeah, I was that excited to play and that keen to take my chance that you just can't wait to get out there. I think I only played 15 minutes or so, but it was the fastest game I've ever played in. Even though I've never watched it back, I presume it was really slow. But then the excitement of just playing and doing something that you've always wanted to do was amazing. So and to do it at Hull was special as well, because it's a great ground to play at. You always want to make your debut at home, but if you could pick an away ground or a place that could go, that it's always, the atmosphere there is incredible.
You played under a couple of coaches in your first spell at Widnes. What kind of influence did they have on your career moving forward?
Well, Neil was, and I've seen Neil a bit more recently, not so recent in these years, but as I've been a coach, and he's calmed down a little bit. To be fair, I was frightened to death of him when I first got in, and a lot of the coaches you have when you're a young kid, you do your best not to speak to them, not because they're bad coaches. That you just don't want to get engaged with the head coach. You don't really want him to speak to you, and you don't really want to speak to him either. You just want to avoid him. But he was good because he gave me a chance, and he backed me. He never once made me feel like I didn't belong. He always felt like I had a part to play in the team and I can contribute. So for that, you're forever grateful for him. But he was frightening. When he went off, there's a few changing rooms where he would lose the plot, and I'd think, oh, please don't say anything to me. But he never did. To be fair, he never singled out young players. He wanted them to do well, and he backed them. So I'll always have a soft spot for Neil Kelly. That's certainly the case.
So then your time at Widnes ended and you went to play for Salford. What was it like transitioning into them and leaving after obviously this place had become, you had feelings of being at home and then having to move on?
Yeah, it was difficult because the last year obviously we got relegated, and at that stage I didn't really want to play anywhere else. I was young. The club had given me a chance, and I wanted to continue to play Super League. It was hard to leave, and a lot of people that I knew and grew up that part of my life with were still staying. But I just felt that I needed to go on and play in Super League. I wanted to stay and challenge myself at that level. And as much as it was really difficult leaving, when I went to Salford, it was a very much similar culture there. That it was very much a family club. All the boys got on really well. So it was, even though it was a different club, it felt like going to the same place, even though, like I say, it was a different club. But them years at Salford were brilliant.
And then you move on to Bradford and Huddersfield later on in your career. Obviously moving to Yorkshire-based clubs, did that have some more challenges presented to you? And obviously you've moved across the world back to England, and then you're moving down the M62 to Yorkshire clubs to travelling and stuff like that. Was that something different to contend with? Yeah, but from being from Australia, or living in Australia, should I say, that travel is most places you have to go over there, you've got to travel an hour at least. So I've never been one that's had a difficulty travelling. And travelling, especially when you're a player, is always dictated by what car you're in. If you're in a good car, the travelling, it doesn't matter if you're going 3 or 4 hours, because it's brilliant. And I was lucky both at Salford and Huddersfield and Bradford, them clubs, we always had a brilliant car. So every day was, sometimes the car travel was better than actually going into work, because you had so much fun going there and back that you just couldn't wait in the morning to get in the car and what would happen on the way there or on the way back. So yeah, I've all my memories of travelling, especially to them clubs, were brilliant, because it was always fun. So in 2011, you returned back to Widnes. How did you come to that decision? What was it that persuaded you to return here? Well, I had another year to run at Huddersfield, and I could feel and the direction the club were taking, and I didn't feel like I was going to be part of that. And the stage where I was at my career, I'd come off a pretty serious injury that, the year before I had an operation on my neck that put me out. I think I didn't play rugby for about 6 months. So, and there was times during that recovery where I'd been told that you probably weren't going to play again, and certain things like that, though none of the doctors ever said that. It was just some of the impressions that were put on upon me. So, I got through that recovery, and I ended up, there was an opportunity to come back to Widnes, and I thought that, that it wasn't really working out at Huddersfield, and it was a good time to come back. I was really fit again. There was no issues with my neck, and I thought I could come back and certainly help the club and contribute on the field. So the opportunity, once I heard about the opportunity to come back, I didn't want to pass it up. So we just made that work. You've not only got the second chance to play for the club, you also got a second chance to play for the club in Super League, obviously getting promoted back in 2012. What was that like for you, being part of that process and seeing what it means to all the players, the staff and the fans of getting back up to Super League?
It's mixed, because the year before, when we were in the Championship, we had a really tight group of players. You know, I needed it at the time. It was because I'd come off a pretty rough couple of years at Huddersfield in injury wise and things like that. To come back into the group that we had was, like I say, I needed it. It was brilliant for me, and we all got on. We all got close. So, as much as I could understand the happiness of the club to get in Super League, which was good, I seen the downside of it, of players that you've spent that year with and you had a great time with them, and just the knock-on effect that it had to some of them that didn't quite get that contract to go to Super League, and then the transformation of the club. So, it was brilliant for the club, and it needed to happen, but it was mixed for me because, I built up some really good relationships with the people. But then to get back in, you want to play in Super League, you want to play at the highest level. So that way, from a personal point of view, it was good as well.
So your career finished at Leeds Centurions, and obviously, you have to come to a decision at some point to hang up your boots. What moment was it that you realised that it was time to stop playing and to move on to something else?
Well, I had all intention of playing the last year of my contract at Leeds. I went to the World Cup, or the World Cup was in England I can't remember, was it 2012, maybe 2013. So I played the World Cup, which was excellent, and then I had a few weeks off and come back into pre-season with Lee, and when I come back in, I wasn't feeling the best, but I'd come off a long season, went into World Cup. I probably felt like I needed a longer rest. So the first few weeks I probably put it down to that, but then I can remember the day now. We run against Wigan reserves in a body in front game on a Saturday for Lee, and I wasn't interested. I couldn't, nothing was. I was finding fun in any of it. So I just remember pulling Paul Rowley off after the session and said, "I'm done. I'm out. This is enough for me. I just don't want to do it anymore." And he just said, "Go home, sleep on it, think of it over the weekend, and then we'll talk about it on Monday." But the more I got home, or when I got home, the more I thought about it and slept on it over the weekend. I just knew I'm done. I've had enough. My body was aching, and I just thought I can't train the way I want to train without sacrificing. It just wasn't right. I didn't want to put myself through another pre-season and games. I just wanted to rest. So we had a good chat, and he mentioned about jumping on the staff and seeing how that would fall into place, because until that point I'd done little bits of coaching, but I'd never thought, well, this is a career I want to take after rugby. I did little bits with the academy here when I was playing here, and I did little bits of S&C with certain things, and I never really thought that that's the direction I wanted to take. So he just said, try it out and see how you go, and we'll take it from there.
Given that you played rugby for quite a while, and it's rugby league's pretty much all that you know in terms of a career, how difficult a process is it to go through when you do find out that it's time to give it up and it's time to retire?
I don't think initially I found it difficult. I think because I knew the decision was right, and I made it myself, and I didn't miss playing. But as time goes by, it does become more difficult. I can only imagine what it would be like when you retire and you don't go into coaching, or you don't go into another role. I didn't experience that, luckily, but I would imagine that would be horrendous. I mean, because you're basically told for 15 years of your life that what to do, when to turn up, how to train. You put yourself through everything and to make it right, and then it just turns off. So to not have that routine and that thing would be horrendous. So it was the longer the time went on, especially the first year, you find certain things difficult. I never missed playing, which was an odd one. I never went to a game and thought, geez, I wish I'd be out there playing now. It's just, I think that the relationships you lose, not straight away, but gradually, because you might be coaching, that's sometimes where you, especially early on, the first year, where the players you play with don't treat you the same, and you just can't be in them relationships anymore. And that was difficult to deal with until you progress in your coaching career. But yeah, I found that hard at times, certainly.
I was going to ask it, going from inside that group and then almost being an outsider as a coach and not being able to behave in certain ways and I don't want to necessarily say be one of the lads, but you've got to like tone it down a little bit, haven't you, going to be a coach? So how long did it take to get used to that transition?
It didn't take so long. It was just, that's where I found the most difficult part to deal with, because like you say, your perception of when you're in with the lads and how you act and what you can and can't do is completely different to when you're a coach. And the players know that boundary as well. They might not initially, so it might take time, but then eventually certain things aren't discussed around you, and it does take time to deal with that and learn that and accept that. And I suppose some probably don't accept it and stay in that where they want to be part of the lads, or they go the other way and it's just too difficult for them. But it is difficult. I mean, it's all because you go from being in a group with all your teammates but then you find another group because you're in a coaching staff, you're in staff. So it's finding that balance and learning what is different about the role. But yeah, it is difficult at times, but it certainly isn't anymore. It took its time for me to learn it, but then it's certainly fine now.
So your coaching started with Lee, and then you obviously experienced being part of the setup at Toronto Wolfpack. Obviously a new club coming in, the first time that a club from Canada's come into the competition, and there's a lot of excitement around them. What was it like being involved in that? How big of an opportunity was that for you so early on in your coaching career as well? Yeah,
it was incredible, to be honest. I mean, as much as there was certainly things that weren't so good, but then the positives far way out that. I was very lucky because I was there from the very start. So to be part of something that was built from nothing and to be in that role and really involved in it was, I'm not sure I'll ever get to do that again. And that was one thing that attracted to me, and obviously Paul Rowley going there was huge for me as well. But to be able to do something like that was incredible. And then to see where it got to, again, I'll still look back and when they got into Super League, even though I wasn't at the club at the time, I was hugely proud of that. Not that I had a part of it, but I felt like I achieved that with them, even though, because it was such a unique thing to do and all the challenges that go with it, and then to do what they did, it was a huge achievement. I know everyone talks about the money they spent, but I challenge anyone to go and start something from absolute scratch and not have the same history of what's come before them, and to do it. And it's not as simple as just saying throw money at it. It was a huge thing to do, and I'll certainly never forget it.
Your journey took you to Newcastle, obviously, where you were given your first head coaching role. What was that step up like from being an assistant? And obviously you've gone from player to assistant, and now you're a head coach of a club. What was that like for you?
It was good. It was exciting. I think from the people I speak to and I take advice from, they always, the one thing that they always say to you is don't go on to being a head coach until you're ready. But the $1 million question is, how do you know when you're ready? Because, I mean, you can always say he doesn't have enough experience, and all these things, but if you feel like you're ready, you're ready. So I felt, certainly the back end of Toronto, the last year before I left, I felt like the ambition was to go and be a head coach. I wanted to start making my own decisions. I wanted to be in charge and do things my way. So that was in the back of my head. So from the year that I left, I was obviously looking for the right opportunity to come along. I was very happy where I was, being an assistant still, but I felt in my mind, like I say, I was ready to go out and do it my own way. So when the opportunity with Newcastle come, and the facilities and the club itself, it just felt like everything was in place for me to make that jump from being an assistant to go and do it on my own.
What was it like preparing for that first game in charge then? Did it take you back to your playing days and those pre-match nerves, or was it a completely different challenge for you, and was it a completely different feeling?
Yeah, it's a different feeling because you're not in control anymore, which, I mean, head coaches want to be in control, and we can control quite a few things, and we like to control a lot, but you can't control once they step over onto the field. And so that's a difficult thing to learn and to understand. And so it's a different mindset, because you know that as long as you're trying to do everything in the week to get your team ready to play a game, but once they get on there, you can't influence too much. You obviously can change certain things, but it's out of your hands, so to speak. So it was exciting, but again, it was, I'm not sure I can find the right word, but it was you just want it to go well the first time. You just want to get a win first, to get that up and running. But yeah, you just want things to go well and the players to respond to what you're trying to do, which at Newcastle, I think we got to a point where, we were playing good rugby and I was enjoying what we were doing. So we were doing them things.
So then towards the end of 2020, you get the call to find out that you're obviously going to be appointed as head coach of Widnes Vikings. Can you take us back to that day and what your feelings were like when you found out?
Yeah, well, it was a good day, to be honest, because it was again mixed, because I loved my time at Newcastle. I think it's a brilliant club. I'm extremely grateful for them taking a chance on me, and the relationships I built there at that place, and particularly with Dennis and Jordan and the infrastructure of the club and the players. It was a good club. It is a good club, should I say. So in one point you're extremely excited. You want to come and do something and be in charge of your hometown club, but you're also that nagging thing in the back of your head that you've got to make some tough phone calls as well, and speak to some people that you feel like you've built a really good relationship with. So there's probably 90% of you saying, this is, I can't wait to get started, but then you've just got that part where you feel like you've got to speak to them people that that you've developed with. So it was a brilliant day though. My family were obviously excited, my kids, and they didn't believe me at first because they thought, we're always joking around with each other anyway. They thought that I'm just making it up, that their dad's going to be coaching at Widnes. I think they've got so used to me being at clubs where they sometimes don't see me at all for months, or I've got to travel, that they just couldn't believe that fact, that their dad's going to be around the corner so they can see more of him, which was pleasing. And certainly my wife and her family were, they couldn't, they were lost for words, which says that that shows how important it is, and the responsibility in my role as well, because they're from Widnes. They've been in Widnes a lot longer than me, and the happiness and that they shown and what it means to them then reflects back to me, and I'm over the moon in my position now and the job I've got, but it comes with a certain responsibility to me, and I can't emphasize how seriously I take that. This isn't a job that I think, I'll try and do my best, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I can just go to bed and forget about it. It's not. It's more than that to me. I feel like I've got to make it work, and I will make it work, and it's not just on me if I don't. There's going to be people looking at me that I wake up with every day that probably I don't want to disappoint either. So it's all them things thrown into one means it's a brilliant job to have.
And you've been here a couple of months now. You're obviously getting a bit settled, and you're working with the staff here. Do you feel like things are going well to start with?
Yeah, I expected it to go well. I know the players that we've got here are great players, and it's a good group. I knew all that before I come, so I knew that would work. But the club is like it is. We've got some great staff here that are full time that help me out. So it's working exactly how I imagine it would work, but then you never know until you get in, because you just, as much as you hear and as much as you get told, until you're in there and you're there every day and seeing it and feeling it, you just don't know. But I'm really happy with how we're going so far. I'm really happy with the players and what they've come back and what they keep producing, and the staff as a whole have been really good as well. So I can't complain at the moment, and I can't find any excuses why we can't do well.
If we look back on your journey in rugby league then, and we go back to obviously the first time you picked up a ball, and then when you made your debut, and then going into the coaching world, who are the people that stand out as having the biggest influence on you, not just in your career but as a person as well?
Well, yeah, it's hard to pick one or two individuals, because I've come across some people that have played a part in my life that have shaped who I am and how I've got the best out of what I've got, really. The first ones that come to mind, like I play with a guy, he played at this club, Shane Millard, who I was lucky enough to live with and take in his family, his wife Robin, and they looked after me a huge amount. And I still speak to Shane and his wife and see them when I get back to Australia. But he's someone that certainly, when I was a young kid coming into first grade, taught me what it was to be a first grade footballer, how you had to behave, what you had to do, and how you had to keep yourself in there. We trained. I look back now, and he used to get me up every morning and make me go training, which you think, I can't be bothered with this, I just want to stay in bed. A little bit, you have a few beers after you play, so even if I didn't want to, because I wasn't a big drinker back then, you had to go and drink, but then you had to go and train the next day. He was just a really good person to be around, and really taught me what you needed to do, not just as a rugby player, but also how he brought up his kids and his families. So I was watching him all the time and learning off him, and I still speak to him now. If I need advice, he's someone that I would go to and pick up the phone to, because he gives me the advice I either don't want or I do need. So he's certainly. And then throughout my career, I've had Jimmy Lowe's was excellent for me at Salford. He spent so much time with me individually and developed me as a player that no other coach had done. He spent hours and hours with me watching video, and he probably shaped how I played, certainly from early on to how I ended up playing the rest of my career. He had a huge influence on how I played the game and how I seen it, and how I, again, could get better as well on the field, which he was brilliant for me. And then as I got further on in my career, Paul Rowley, certainly at the back end of my career, he coached a different way that I'd seen before. A lot of teams play the same way in certain things, but how he seen the game was, like I said, I'd not seen many players and not coaches do that. How they attack and how he seen the game, which opened my eyes up, certainly at the back end of my career, where you thought you've seen and heard everything. He was just had a different approach, which I found refreshing for one, and it was just such a unique way of playing at the time. So it really jumped out at me. And then when I jumped on staff with him, in terms of my coaching career, early on he had a huge influence on me. What he gave me and the responsibility he gave me, certainly to me and my staff, was incredible. He accelerated my development. When you asked me that question, how do you know you're ready? And I probably wouldn't be ready as soon as if I didn't start under Paul Rowley. He certainly give ownership to his staff a lot more than I know from speaking to other coaches that they get. I was in charge of a lot of things under him, and what he involved me in, dealing with the chief executives, all these things, he always kept you in. So there was nothing he hid from you. So that in that way, he had a huge influence, certainly on my coaching career, and I still speak to him now, but he developed me. The 3-4 years I spent with him probably added another 10 years on me in my coaching, because I'd seen there'd nothing by the time I'd left Paul that I hadn't seen. Where I know some assistants now, they might not be in any contract negotiations. They might not have to deal with their chief executives. They might not be able to lead training. They don't run videos. So there's certain things, elements that they wouldn't do. But under Paul, there'd be nothing that I wasn't involved in or actually did myself. So he had a huge influence on me. But I think in terms of, certainly as I've grown older, my wife plays a big part in the influence that she's put on me. She's had to put up with quite a bit of me moving around clubs and dealing with things like that. And she's also a sounding board that you don't always get that away from the sport. And she's backed me 100% to go and live in a different country and look after our kids and bring up the kids. But at no point has made that into a chore or made it sound harder than it is. So she's played a huge influence on me. The later part of my life, I'm talking like I'm old, but certainly the latter part of my life. So I've been lucky. I've had some people that look out for me and try and do the best by me. Even probably sometimes when I didn't really want it, but they've always looked out for me. So I've had some really important people in my life so far.
And just to wrap things up, you've talked about how much this club means to you, how much Widnes the town means to you. So what would it mean for you on a personal note to be successful here as a head coach?
I'm not so much the personal way, because most people that know me or know me intimately anyway know that I'm not personally. I'm not too bothered what anyone says or even good or bad. I just want the club to be in a position or at least get ourselves back to a position where we're stable and we've got a good feeling about the club. Where that takes us, who knows? But if we get everything right and we're all trying to go in the same direction together and just trying to improve staff, players, myself, the whole community, and get behind the club, then, like I say, that will be the most pleasing thing for me. Because if we get all them things right, and I'm obviously play a huge part in that, I've got to win us some games and improve. But if we all try and improve together, because we've got the backing of the fans, then who knows where it can take us. And that will be, personally for me, that will make me sit back and have a smile on my face, because my job is to make people better, but then also the people around me have got to make me better. So that's what I want to look back on in however long it is. Hopefully it's a long time where I can sit back here and maybe do the same thing in 5 years, 10 years and say we got better as a club, because where we've been, certainly in the short term, isn't a good place. No one wants to go back there, and it might take time to get what certain people class as being successful again. But I think them small steps of all doing it together and just improving day by day and individually and collectively as a group, we'll get back to them times again. But that's my job. That's what I'm here to do, to try and make people better and myself better. And personally, in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, if I can look back and say we did that, then I'll walk around town with a smile on my face.